Are you ready for the Low Blows Network? Hi guys, Rick here. Before we get to this episode of Paddy's New Yacht, I'd like to talk briefly about gambling because it'll be discussed a lot on this show. Gambling is supposed to be fun and accoutrement to your sporting weekend. However, it can also be debilitating and ruin lives. If you find that your gambling gets in the way of work, school or other activities, causes mental or physical health issues, causes any issues in your life, gives you financial stress of any kind or damages your reputation, then gambling may be a danger to you. If you spot any of these signs in yourself, stop gambling immediately, consult problemgambling.ie for all resources that can assist you and help yourself before it's too late. And now, on to Paddy's New Yacht.
Former pro wrestler Rick Nash and former Paddy Power insider David Kent are not good gamblers. They're sports fanatics who are determined to crack the code and make it rich on sports gambling or die trying.
This time next year, we'll be millionaires.
Follow them on their journey to eventual bankruptcy every Friday on the Low Blows Network with sports tips that made so much sense at the time in Paddy's New Yacht.
Magic Johnson is a ghoster, it turns out. One of the true nice guys of American sports during the week came out and held one of the strangest press conferences you'll ever see, where he basically said, yeah, look, I've had such a great time at the Lakers. I'm loving this job, but I'm quitting now. I'm done officially as of this second. And then came out afterwards. Journalists were obviously interviewing him, and he came out and he was like, how did Jeannie Buss, the owner of the Lakers, how did she react to this? And he's like, oh, I haven't told her. She's like, so she's hearing this now, watching the telly, and he's like, yeah, I couldn't do that to her face. It's like, it's worse doing it through television, Magic. What are you doing? Creating absolute chaos in the LA organization. It was believed that he was going to sack his coach, after the game that was taking place that night. That was what all the discussion was about, because he hadn't been getting on with Luke Walton. Everything was operating as normal. They were building towards an off-season, and then just out of nowhere, it's just like, you know what, I was happier before I did this. I think I'm going to quit. And that was that. He's gone. So, as we get kicked off here on another week of Paddy's New Yacht, Rick Nash in here with the Daily Star and Buzz.ie's David Kent. Kento, what is the weirdest breakup you can remember in sports?
It's kind of a weirdest breakup and then a weirdest reconciliation. We're going to talk tennis. We're going to talk Andy Murray, and surprisingly, no, it's not Andy Murray splitting up from tennis in general when he retired at the start of the year. I'm going to go for when he split with Ivan Lendl. He obviously coached by him when he won his first Grand Slam in the US Open, and then Wimbledon in 2013. But then he split with Lendl the year after that. It was kind of a bit of, like, they said it was for Lendl to focus on his daughters and his family, but then I suppose few tennis heads were like, okay, there might be something a bit deeper rooted there. So he decided to go to former US Open women's winner in Emily Mauresmo. And that didn't really go down too well with his backroom staff, and two of them left at the end of the season. On the court, he dropped out of the top 10 under her. Mauresmo left at the start of 2016. Murray went back to Lendl for the summer and immediately won Wimbledon again. So it's like the jilted ex-lover. And he's like, okay, look, I know I was wrong. Please come back and help me. Lendl goes, grunts, because he's famously emotionless. And immediately just brings him to Wimbledon again. So it was just an awkward, like, more for Murray than anything else. Lendl doesn't really care, I'd say. I mean, anyone who's watched tennis, anyone who's seen Ivan Lendl knows that he's got a face of stone. The stone men from Game of Thrones were based off of Ivan Lendl. So that was just awkward for me.
Yeah, tennis can be quite awkward with coaches and stuff like that. The problem is with coaches, it's the trend in tennis is that you get to a certain level and then you upgrade your coach. So things are obviously going well, like, because you've just won something. It's like Naomi Osaka earlier in this year, split up with her coach when he was like, oh, we're playing great, we're winning all these majors. And she's like, yeah, I'm gonna move on. It's just it is with tennis you get that a lot. I'm gonna talk about an actual breakup involving a tennis player. What else can it be, especially with the Masters getting underway this weekend? Rory McIlroy, Caroline Wozniacki. It was just, and how, like, this was like a celeb mega power couple. They're getting ready for their wedding. All of the kind of tabloid reporting is, oh, the invites were sent out today, and then it's like Rory broke up with her via a 7-minute phone conversation. Absolute insanity, like. And as well, what was horrible and made it so awkward was that they both are high-profile sports players, two of the best in their respective fields, and then had to go out and play in front of people while we know all of this is going on in the background and they're still dealing with it emotionally. Wozniacki in particularly, like, because it's like, basically, the world learned that her partner didn't love her enough. Which is just awful. Like, you don't want the world knowing that stuff. And then she to go out on court. Now, she actually thrived. She actually did quite well in this. Got to a few major finals and so on. So, like, she probably had the best spell of her career because obviously the crowd got behind her, especially, like, people who had been jilted lovers in the past. So, it worked out, but it was just really, like, again, just awkward. And that's the only way I can describe this Magic Johnson situation. It's weird, it's awkward, and nobody knows exactly how to feel. We got onto Twitter, asked you guys if you could think of one. Alan Davis got back with one, and he said, Paulie Malignani went from Conor McGregor as a great athlete and will give Floyd a fight to fuck him. He hits like a bitch. Fight me, why don't you? After like 3 days and one picture. Well, look, putting up the wrong picture can spark any bad breakup. So yeah, I kind of get it there. And isn't that the Conor McGregor effect, where you look at him and initially you go, fair play to the lad, and then you kind of get a bit deeper and you're like, nah, fuck that guy.
Yeah. It's like it was like a drunk guy in a bar. He's like, you're my best friend. Your man fucks off to the jacks and just goes, yeah, you know what, fuck him.
Yeah, this is it, exactly. But I'm on Team Paulie with this one. Anyway, guys,
absolutely.
Busy show. We have one of my favourite bets of the year coming up. We will preview the NBA playoffs taking place to fill the sporting void in your life as we look down the barrel at the end of the football season with no international competitions or anything taking place. This can be a way you can fill your interest. I'll give you a Blaggers guide to everything you need to know to keep up with it. We're also going to be looking at the Premier League and the sporting weekend ahead as usual, but we're going to get kicked off as we always do with the news from the week, because we have so much. We love all the sport basically, and we have so much sport that we want to discuss. All of it. If it has balls, if it has like, if it's played on grass, if it's played indoors, if it's played outdoors, we love it all. But
if it involves a cock and a racket,
well, whatever you're into, Dave. We try and distill all of the week into just 5 stories, the main 5 stories we want to talk about, and give our lightning quick hot takes, where we put a minute on the clock in theory for each one and tell you our thoughts on it. It's called the 5 and 5, and it's going to get underway now, because in a week where John Delaney refused to say literally anything to the Oireachtas Committee, Sport Ireland announced it was dropping funding for the FAI, while committee chairman Fergus O'Dowd called for a regime change. But will this be enough to finally get Delaney out?
No, I don't think so, unless the sponsors look at that. If the likes of Three, Deep River Rock, anyone who sponsored them, even Microwave, those microwavable hamburgers, what are they, Rustlers, aren't they? They sponsor the FAI. If they look at that yesterday and aren't embarrassed by it, then there's no hope of Delaney. Delaney let everyone else on his board shoot themselves in the foot while he stayed silent. And like, the only time Delaney spoke was to accept compliments. Michael Healy-Rae, unsurprisingly pathetic. Like, fair play to the likes of Ruth Coppinger, Imelda Munster, Jonathan O'Brien in particular, obviously close links with him in Cork City. They did their job. They questioned him. They got the answer. Like, the FAI not knowing how many accounts they had, I mean, like, it's shambolic, it's embarrassing, but they're answerable to nobody. That was the government of Ireland asking them these questions, and still nothing. Like they can just go, oh well, it happened last week, let's move on to something else, because unless the sponsors do anything and start pulling their money, Sport Ireland are helping, but they've already given them half the cuts this year, so they'll be able to survive the year at least, and by then you don't know what happens. I'm hopeful. brilliant to see them squirm, but I'm still not sure.
Yeah, you've been hurt before, and you've been down this road before. I think this is the end. I think, like, for Delaney, I think this is the end. Yesterday was absolutely embarrassing. It was pitiful, and it was like when you start to question how the country works because of how shambolic. That's the kind of thing that gets people moving. And again, once you say, like, again, you're right when you say it comes down to the sponsors, but Sport Ireland, like, they usually when sponsors pull out, it's usually one waiting for the other and seeing will they do it, and if they do it, I kind of have to do it. Sport Ireland getting the ball rolling on this, I think, like, it could even be by the end of the show we could hear announcements and we could have phone calls will be made about this because people are now tying their businesses into it, and it's becoming increasingly clear that it's an untenable situation to tie yourself into. So I think this is the end. But also it was a giant fuck you from John Delaney, and like it just showed his true colours as well. It showed us who he is as a person. Like he's happy to play this jolly lad when he's out in international tournaments, celebrating with the fans, and he's like, I'm just like one of you guys. But yesterday when he showed up in front of the Oireachtas and said that he wasn't going to speak about his former role, which he spent the past like 15 years working at as CEO, and he can only speak about the role that he's had for the past few weeks, it was a fuck you to the Irish establishment. It was like, I'm not going down without a fight here. I think he knows he's going down though, because he didn't even like want to defend himself. Like he didn't even care about his image anymore. So I think he knows he's going down, but he's just going down where, like, all right, I'm not going to let you take me down. I'm not going to prison. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to admit to corruption. But this is it. It's reached that stage, and finally, it's about time, I have to say.
I'll wait and see. I mean, hopefully I get an FAI email into my phone in the middle of the show, and if you do, we're going to have to take 5 minutes just for me to celebrate. But no, we'll move on to the Champions League. And intriguing game week. Spurs beat Man City 1-0, but Harry Kane got injured, and Barca beat United, but only by the minimum as well. Can you see either Manchester club turning around next week?
They're not horrible results to have in the first leg because their dynamic is still the same. They probably, even if they'd have drawn, they still would have had to have gone they would have had to go away and they would have had to score anyway. So it's not the worst case scenario. Man City obviously now will have away goals playing on their minds, whereas United will be like, right, if we score, we're in the same situation. It's actually a better result than the Paris Saint-Germain situation. And Barcelona aren't the team that they were. Do I think Man United will do it next week? No, I don't think they'll do it. I think City will, though. I think City are going through. I had Spurs to beat them in the prediction league, but I had Spurs winning and then City winning the second leg. So I think this would be a jolt for Pep Guardiola, as we'll speak about later. City tend to respond to adversity quite well this season. So I think they're going to go through still. But I think United, and look, if we can go out with a bit of pride, that's as good as we can ask for. Consider our expectations last November. So it's not the end of the world if United do. But that's where I'm going.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. I think United will go down swinging. I can see them definitely scoring next week. I know, like we talked about Barca in your European football bit all year as well, but if you've been listening, they're not indestructible. They're not unbeatable at home either. Not saying United will beat them, but I reckon that they'll definitely put up a fight. City, City at home when they're in the kind of up against the corner, nosebleed situations, they can tend to do quite well. We'll talk about that later on, as you say. So I can see definitely City. United, listen, I wouldn't be surprised if they did it because it's that kind of season, but I'm not expecting them to.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, sticking with the Champions League. Premier League clubs last week said they would all oppose proposed changes to the Champions League. They would see games move to weekends, a more league-style format with 4 groups of 8, and qualification based off historical success, most controversy. Can you see these changes, or even part of them, going through?
I think the weekends one would be like dead in the water anyway because of the amount of leagues who play, the major leagues who play at the weekend. 4 groups of 8 is a bit more interesting. I'd like to see something like that. We want to see the bigger teams play each week. It's what the GA have done with the Supers. We want to see those big games. And then so if we get that more often with more teams, possibly a bit better. Historical success, I mean, I don't really want to see Steaua Bucharest in the Champions League every other week. So no offense, but no. I think 4 groups of 8 would be the most interesting one. It's probably the best one with the chance of passing as well because, I mean, only Red Star Belgrade want to see Red Star Belgrade in the Champions League as well. So, I'd like to see a bit of change in the Champions League. It is getting maybe a tad bit stale, but we'll have to wait and see. The European Super League is still what I'm after.
Yeah, and I think that's going to happen. We spoke about this before. I think, look, this is inevitable, and the big teams are pushing for it now. This will not go through. The Premier League all came out and said they don't want it. The French League came out this week as well and said it. So, look, they're losing full leagues, and that's including the big teams involved. So your Man United, your Paris Saint-Germains and stuff like that. But I think, this is where it's going. It's going to lead to something like this. I think even the weekend games, I think it is going to rip apart domestic football eventually. And, what of it as well? It'll make things more competitive if we have, is it really a bad thing if, we don't have the Premier League as we remember it? Yeah, fair enough. But at the same time, the Premier League is usually won by one of 4 or 5 teams. If we'd have a Premier League then where Crystal Palace could win it because the big teams are in other leagues. It gets a Premier League which still is 70% of what it is, but then you get a Super League which has all the big teams, and we don't know who's going to win it season on season. This is going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen within the next couple of years, but I think within the next 10 to 20 years, this is going to be the norm in football in the same way the Premier League kind of came from the First Division. This is what the big teams want. They have the money, they have the power, they're going to get it eventually, but this is not the exact way. It'll just be what we're hearing now is what it'll eventually become. Maybe historical success is the only thing. I think they'll have to negotiate down to some kind of promotion relegation system. But apart from that, this is the way it's going.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone kind of really wants as well. Moving back to basketball, Magic Johnson, we mentioned it in the opener, left the LA Lakers, with the majority of fans seeming grateful for his service, but delighted that he's gone. The 35-year-old LeBron James next year, is this where we see the start of the rebuild of LA?
Where did you get the people are delighted?
I saw, just looking at the trend, I was like, oh, happy, very much thank you, but we needed this, is what I saw.
I know.
Just off a couple of hashtags.
I'm getting mass confusion and, despondence because there was a plan in place for LA and LeBron was part one of that plan. They were looking to get Anthony Davis. They probably will get him in this summer. He left his final game with the New Orleans Pelicans, the final regular season game. He arrived to it with a t-shirt that said, "That's all, folks," which shows you where his head is at. So, they will get Anthony Davis this summer, most likely. I don't think it's necessarily the start of a rebuild because the rebuild was that was Magic Johnson's plan. That was what was it was based around it, and like I said, the organization didn't even know this was going to happen, so it's created chaos, and they don't necessarily have a guy lined up to replace it. It's a tough job to fill executive roles. You have to have a person who is aware of scouting, who knows how to run an organization. If you're getting someone in for the LA Lakers, you have to get someone who's ran sporting organizations before. That's not a long list of people, and the list of people who are actually available is even less, and it's also made LA less of a free agent destination now because there are key free agents. Kevin Durant is on the market next year. They could have got him. They could have had a super team of Kevin Durant, LeBron James and Anthony Davis go out every week, whereas and that would have been very appealing to basketball players to have a legend like Magic Johnson ushering them in. Now they don't know what's going on. Their future looks uncertain there. LeBron James is aging, and we've seen this season he can't take LA to the playoffs anymore. This is the first playoffs in LeBron's career that he's not involved in any way. So it's not this has been a spanner in the works for LA. It's thrown them into absolute disarray. It's not the end of the world because they still LeBron is still a big draw for players. They still will get Anthony Davis, and they have 36 million in cap fee before they even start to offload big players and free that up even more. So it's not the end of the world, but it's certainly a spanner in the works, and it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. It's a reality TV show. They're not even a basketball organization anymore. Like most institutions in America, it's become a reality TV show. But like all great reality TV shows, you can't turn it off even if you know it's a mess. Anyway, moving on, last but not least, the Masters kicks off this weekend with Rory McIlroy looking to add the missing piece of his CV and exercise his ghost with Augusta. Can he do it, or if not, who do you see wearing the green jacket on Sunday?
It's possibly my favourite weekend of the year, Masters weekend, just simply because it's 4 days and you have to watch all of it. like, McIlroy is by far the best player in the world at the moment. He's had 7 top 6 finishes so far in 2019, and the Players' Championship a couple of weeks ago. But the question always hangs over Augusta because of what happened 8 years ago now in 2011, where he had a 4-shot lead going into the last round and finished 10 strokes off the leader. That's a long time ago, and McIlroy's still the right age of 30. He's in I think he's almost peaking at this time. I know he's won trophies in a space of a year in past years, but now his golf is just unbelievable. I don't know if he's going to do it, though. I'm liking the look of Justin Rose as world number 1. Tiger is always a contender. Yeah. Spieth. I've got a couple of bets later on that I'll talk about, but like McIlroy, he's a favourite. I'd love to see him do it. I'm just not sure if he can.
And with golf, it's so hard to predict outright winners as well. It could be literally anyone. And the recent trend in the Masters has been you get some unknown person that like becomes a star after they win at Augusta, but that's where they kind of make their bow. My head for this says Brooks Koepka, to add to his fucking amazing CV, the reigning US Open and US PGA Open champion. My heart says Tiger. I want to see Tiger get another major, and if he's going to do it anywhere, it's going to be Augusta. He is coming back slowly but surely. He's in contention in a lot of these tournaments, so if he can pull it together for a weekend, it's going to be in Augusta. That's what I'll be keeping an eye on. It just feels like McIlroy, he has, like, it's not just that one round 8 years ago. He's had a bit of a hex when it comes to Augusta. It's the one course that seems to get in his head, and it's probably the ghost of that round that haunts him. But at the same time, he is a class player. I think he will eventually overcome it. I don't know if it'll be because when you see a Masters winner, it's generally someone that we're not looking at because the pressure is so high. It's the most high profile and highly publicised Master, even though it's the first one in the calendar year. So it's where the pressure on the final day is highest. So, and we've seen McIlroy can lead from the front as well, which is what he tends to have to do to win these things. So I don't know if this is going to be his week, but it's going to be fascinating. There are so many in contention, and then it's probably going to be some random that we just fall in love with on Saturday evening. So we shall see. It is an exciting weekend ahead with the Masters starting. I love this weekend as well because it reminds you that there is other sport. As we're looking down the barrel at the end of the football season, it reminds you other sports exist. We're going to be fine. There's going to be plenty on in the summer because we're looking at our plans for June and we're like, I don't know, is there like a crappy, underage World Cup I can keep an eye on? I'm gonna watch the indoor football World Championships this year. But for me, the way I fill the hole is with the NBA playoffs, and it is a great shout. It's something that you can keep an eye on. It's something where there's daily action. And it's something where there's always great storylines. Like, for me, the NBA is like, it's competing with the NFL for eyes now, in terms of they have like a superstar generation. You still have LeBron in the league, so you still have your main alpha, even though he's not in the playoffs, and it's the first one without him for years, like I said. But at the same time, you have a superstar generation coming through, full of guys that you can just hitch your wagon to, full of new teams as well. The Eastern Conference is now blown wide open without LeBron in it because he's owned that conference for over a decade now. So it's a great time to get involved with basketball if you want. Unfortunately, I'm here to help you through it with a Blagger's Guide to it. So basically, if you want to know what the deal is with the NBA playoffs, they start this Saturday, and there's probably going to be games on every single night until the finals kick off at the end of May, start of June. It's the top 8 in the Eastern and Western conferences. They face off with the two conference champions competing in the finals. It's a best-of-7 series, meaning the best sides tend to come out on top, but in an 82-game regular season, it doesn't necessarily mean that the side who is seeded higher is the better side. It tends to be the side with better players, as we'll discuss, because it's so long. Like, it's a 3-month phase at the end of a 6-month season, after a 6-month regular season, so it's like a second season. And for a lot of teams who struggle in the regular season but have a great starting 5, they'll tend to reset a lot of the time. So that's why it ends up being great, because you may have, like last year, for example, we had the New Orleans Pelicans beat the 6, who were the 6th seed in the Western Conference, beat the 3 seed Portland Trailblazers 4-0. They swept them in the first round of it. So, like I said, you don't necessarily see the team with the best winning record throughout the regular season be the better team in the playoffs. Sky Sports have live coverage of the big games if you're for a few late shifts, but for those of us who have stupid normal jobs and lives, NBA League Pass is worth a look to fill the void if you need some sporting hit hit when the football season ends. They tend to do offers for the playoffs, so you're talking like 30-40 quid. I think they tend to do. The regular season only ended last night, and the playoffs start on Saturday, so they'll start to unveil their offers. For example, like, I'm doing a big bet here, but Paddy Power and a lot of bookmakers haven't started offering odds for it yet because they're still adjusting to last night's games as well. So yeah, you can get that and you can watch all the games on League Pass, or what I do is you can get condensed 10-15 minute highlights of each game the next morning. So you can Chromecast that as well. It's a really good service with League Pass. You can get the app on your phone and you're set. And yeah, like I said, it's a changing of the guard because it'll be the first without LeBron James in it. So you know LeBron, you've seen him in movies, you've heard us talk about him, you've seen him everywhere. He's one of these omnipresent sporting figures, even if you don't watch basketball. Now you have the new guard coming up and trying to take his claim. And also as well, because LeBron isn't in it, and because LeBron left the Eastern Conference last year to join the harder Western Conference, which contains the team who are looking for their third NBA Finals win in a row, the Golden State Warriors, you'll get it. For the past few years, it's been LeBron versus the Warriors. You're going to get a new team having a crack at the Warriors in the finals this time around, if the Warriors even get there, because they look more vulnerable than ever before. So it's intriguing. I'm going to give you the main storylines and the main names and teams you need to keep an eye out for, starting with the Western Conference, because the reality is that until proven otherwise, the NBA is still the Golden State Warriors world and everyone else is just living in it. Though this season they have seemed more beatable than beforehand. The starting five of Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and this season's new superstar addition in DeMarcus Boogie Cousins are looking for their third straight NBA championship. They're fourth in 5 years, and at this stage it's a case of bet against them at your peril. In second place, I don't think anyone is singing the praises of the Denver Nuggets preseason. I don't think anyone who was singing the praises of the Denver Nuggets preseason expected them to live up to the hype as much as they did. But Nikola Jokic has put himself in the MVP conversation, nearly averaging a triple-double, which is like points, rebounds, and assists for the regular season, while Paul Millsap has a deputy with the experience to lead a playoff run. It's easy to write them off as newbies, and they face Greg Popovich's always dangerous San Antonio Spurs in the first round, but they proved doubters wrong all season, so will they be able to challenge the Dubs as we move on? The Houston Rockets are perhaps the best team built to challenge the Warriors, though, as they must do so now in the conference semis instead of the finals after losing to Oklahoma City on Wednesday night. James Harden has been making a late case for MVP, the first player since Michael Jordan in 1987 to average 36 points per game, and he's been absolutely unstoppable. He's a bit of a hard player to watch because his signature move is like he either speeds towards the basket and ends up getting fouled, so gets an and one, as it's called, which is just you hit your basket and then you get fouled, so you get a chance to shoot for an extra point, making a 2-point opportunity into a 3-point one. Or he does a step back jumper, which is basically runs at the player, he stops really quickly, steps back, gets a bit of space and shoots, and he's absolutely fantastic at them. So and it's so predictable, like it's, you know what's coming before it happens, but defenses are powerless to stop it. He's also got veteran point guard Chris Paul, and if he's healthy, they're a formidable outfit for anyone peaking at exactly the right time. They face a stiff test in the Utah Jazz in the first round, though they're a tricky side, enough to cause an upset to a big team, if not necessarily contend themselves. Another side who's proven historically awkward for the Warriors are the Oklahoma City Thunder, who secured back-to-back wins for the 6th seed and may have just seen the draw open up favourably for them if they can pull it together. Heading into All-Star break, many observed how the Thunder could be the Warriors' kryptonite, given they have a history of being a thorn in their side in the playoffs, and Paul George was playing at MVP level alongside former MVP Russell Westbrook. But things have taken a turn since, and they've won less than 40% of their games since the break, with the offense the 4th worst in the league. As with teams like the Boston Celtics, though, and as we said earlier, the playoffs can be a good chance to reset, and talent can thrive. They take on 3-seed Portland Trailblazers, led by Damian Lillard, who by all rights have been the better team all season and should win the series, but their playoff record is patchy in recent years. They've been swept in the first round, as we said earlier on. Last year, they lost to the Pelicans 4-0, when they were also the 3-seed playing the 6th seed. and they lost 4-0 to Golden State Warriors the year before. So will history repeat, or can Lillard finally show that he can do it in the playoffs? That's the Western Conference setup. In the Eastern Conference, it's all about who's next to step up now that LeBron James is gone. And not many predicted it'd be the Milwaukee Bucks, who were the main beneficiaries and become alpha dogs in the league under expected MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo. They registered 60 wins for the first time in their franchise history since 1981, but with Giannis nursing an array of leg injuries in the later weeks of the regular season, are they a flop in waiting, making the final leap? What tends to happen in the NBA playoffs is you tend to have these new alpha dog players. It happened with LeBron in Cleveland. He didn't win a championship for years until he moved to Miami. It happened with Kevin Durant in Oklahoma City. You have these players who they go to the playoffs for the first time and everyone's like, this is their time, and they just end up losing somewhere along the way, learning, going back, studying their craft, getting somehow better than we thought they could be, and then coming back and winning it all. So it could be a case of that for the Bucks, or the alternative is they have the likes of Eric Bledsoe and Chris Middleton helping Giannis carry the load. They've also played at all-star level, and then they're the 1 seed, so who knows. If they are to slip though, the Toronto Raptors and Philadelphia 76ers will be the sides best poised to make a jump. The Raptors, generally getting cheered on by Drake and a rabid Toronto crowd, have fallen short for 5 years as they constantly ran into the LeBron wall. But with LeBron gone and former NBA Finals MVP Kawhi Leonard joining Kyle Lowry, their seasoning may leave them poised for their first ever Finals appearance. They are favourites with a lot of bookies at this stage now, even despite Milwaukee winning, having the MVP and finishing with a better record for exactly the reasons I discussed. The Sixers have trusted the process. Basically, they became known for tanking in the NBA. That's where teams just get rid of their best players and just build around the draft. And they try and get the top spot in the draft, which goes to the bottom teams. The teams want to lose, which was controversial at the time, but it's worked for the 76ers. They built a team full of studs in Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and star signing Jimmy Butler joining this year. They disappointed in the unit's first playoffs together last season, but with an extra year under their belts, they may be well placed to thrive in a wide open East. Unfortunately for last year's Eastern finalists, the Boston Celtics, the wheels may be coming off at exactly the wrong time. Led by want-away point guard Kyrie Irving, everyone expected the C's to thrive without LeBron with Al Horford and Gordon Hayward also bolstering a side that made the conference finals with key injuries to all of those players last season. But they flattered to deceive, and they faced an Indiana Pacers side in the first round who've impressed despite losing their star player Victor Oladipo to season-ending injury around March. That's a tricky tie. The playoffs is a good time, though, to push the reset button, like we said, and the Celtics are well coached under Brad Stevens and the most accomplished team in NBA history, so you could easily see them making a big run too. So it's interesting. Last season, no one expected anything of the Celtics, and they ended up getting to the conference finals with injuries. This season, they have a full side, but they don't seem to be clicking, but they have a great coach, so if they can get it back together, they could be poised to take advantage too. The rest of the East is filled out with wildcards like the Brooklyn Nets, Orlando Magic, and the Detroit Pistons, who may not have even expected to be here at the start of the season, but have shocked everyone. You wouldn't expect a deep run by any of those three, to be honest, but they could cause problems for the top teams, and at least one upset is certainly possible. So that's the storylines as they stand. That's how the conferences are set up. Basically, on Saturday, you start the 8 first round games. There's 2 games on Saturday, 4 games on Sunday, and then it tends to settle into 2 games per night during the midweek, and then 3 games at the weekend until teams start petering off. Series tend to last over 2 weeks. You've got 7 games over 14 days, so teams tend to play every other night. What I do, and here's what one of my favourite bets of the year is, I take all 8 series, I bet on the score in the series. So it's best of 7, first to 4. And you can reasonably guess. You can guess individually what the score of each series will be and have a good chance of getting it right. It's just putting all 8 together. You usually get like €5 for like 500 grand. Because putting all 8 together. But the thing that makes it my favourite bet is that for about a week, your bet will still be alive. You will still have an opportunity to win that. So that's what makes it interesting for me. So I'm going to do the same as always. I'm going to bet on the 8 games, starting with the Bucks against the Pistons. And it's Blake Griffin versus Giannis Antetokounmpo. Blake Griffin, former LA Clipper. You may have seen him like if you've watched highlight reels and whatnot. He's that guy who he's a white guy with a perm and weird hair, but he just looks like he's got a bulldog face. He looks like he just blasts his way to the rim. But now he got traded by the Clippers, got sent to the Pistons, and now he's become a complete player. He's able to hit 3-pointers now. He's able to lead a team. He's able to play more of a point guard role and carry the ball a lot more. So he's playing Giannis, who's the MVP incumbent. And they need Griffin to show up big here because it's the 8 seed against the 1 seed. But the Pistons have had to play hard just to be here and maybe gassed out from the end of their regular season. While the Bucks have been able to rest Giannis for a lot of his injuries. So I see this finishing in the regular season, they finished 4-0 to the Bucks. I think that's exactly how it finishes here. The Celtics play the Pacers, and Boston nabbed home court here by beating the Pacers last week, and that could be crucial. The Pacers' only win over the Celtics this season came when Oladipo ran riot. He's missing. He went out with season-ending injury, as we said earlier, and I think Boston are getting it together at the right time. I'm going for Boston 4-1 here. For me, the best of the Eastern Conference comes, and not just because they're my team, when the Orlando Magic, the 7 seeds, take on the 2 seeds Toronto Raptors. It's a sneaky, decent series as Kawhi Leonard returns to the postseason after sitting out last year in a dispute which saw him leave the Spurs in the end and join Toronto, which he didn't want to do, by the way. He was very annoyed about it because he got traded, so he doesn't get a say in where he joins. But he's got it together and he's played well, and the Toronto are the 2 seeds and the favourites by many to go through to advance to the finals. Kawhi Leonard returns to the postseason, as do my beloved Orlando Magic for the first time since 2012, the Dwight Howard years. These two sides split their regular season contest 2-all, so I think it's going to be competitive, but the best team tends to win over a 7-game series, so I've got the Raptors emerging 4-2 here. Finally, in the East, it's the 76ers against the Nets. They're divisional rivals, and they split their regular season clashes, but only once did they play with all of the Sixers stars healthy, and in that game, they led by 20 points in the fourth quarter en route to an easy 13-point victory. I respect what the Nets have done to get here. They were a bottom-feeding team for the longest time. They're the newest franchise in the league, moving from New Orleans to Brooklyn. And they've turned D'Angelo Russell, a former Lakers player who was gotten rid of in the LeBron trade, into an all-star caliber player. So I will give them respect here by giving them a game. I think the Sixers win 4-1 here. The Warriors play the Clippers in the Western Conference, the 1 versus 8 seed. The Clippers should be happy just to be here. They've rebuilt under Doc Rivers, who won championships with the Boston Celtics in the past, and they've rebuilt in crazy quick time after blowing up their side and dealing their star players in Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan. But their star player, Lou Williams, wouldn't even get a look in the Warriors starting 5. So the Warriors have this all day, 4-0. The Clippers are just happy to be here. The Rockets play the Jazz. It's a sneaky good and could be competitive series. And the two, like so many others, split their regular season meetings. But the Jazz's 2 wins came back in October and December before the Rockets were who they are now. They've gotten better as the season has gone on. When James Harden was looking for that MVP, they're going to want to make an impression because they can smell blood with Golden State. The last clash saw the Rockets run riot. They won by 27, and that was more representative of the two teams you're getting here. So the Rockets have playoff seasoning now, and they're hungry for their shot at the Warriors. I think they're winning 4-1 here. The Portland Trail Blazers take on the Oklahoma City Thunder, and here is your first round upset, guys. Historic playoff chokers, the Trail Blazers, face an Oklahoma City side who came off the boil late in the season, as we discussed earlier, but pulled it back together before the end. The playoffs, as I said, are a fresh start, and in the playoffs, the team with the best players tends to win. Paul George and Russell Westbrook beats Damian Lillard, unfortunately. Oh, and Oklahoma also swept the regular season meetings between the two 4-0. I don't see it being that dramatic. I don't see it being that one-sided, but I see Oklahoma City emerging 4-2 here. Finally, you've got my favourite matchup of the first round. It's the Denver Nuggets against the San Antonio Spurs, and this sets up the dynamic at play here. The Denver Nuggets head coach Mike Malone said when asked about Greg Popovich and this clash podcast during the week. He said, Greg Popovich has 5 rings. I have a wedding ring. And that's pretty much the dynamic at play here. Greg Popovich is like Bill Belichick in the NFL. He's the old wily coach, the genius who keeps getting his team there. But imagine Bill Belichick stayed as the Patriots coach after Tom Brady and Gronkowski and Edelman had all left and all retired, and he's trying to rebuild from the ground up. That's kind of where the Spurs are at here. This is the 2nd seed meets the 7th seed. So they've fallen from grace a bit, but they're still great, and he still knows how to win in the playoff. It's a battle of experience versus young talent. The Spurs, like I said, have been to the past 22 postseasons. That is insane. But on court, the likes of Paul Millsap and Mason Plumlee for Denver could offset the experience of LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan. See, the Spurs aren't the same core who got to those 22 postseasons. So, they don't, then the Spurs as well don't really have anything to match Nikola Jokic on the court. So I see Denver just edging it, but I see this being an absolute 7-game thriller. So to recap, that's an 8-way bet, and we'll put up if we can find bookmakers who are going to take it. Ladbrokes usually do it. Paddy Power, I've asked about it, and they've said they will put up odds, but obviously you have to give them time. The regular season only ended literally a few hours ago. So if an 8-way ACCA, just put €5 on it, and it's the crack, and then it keeps you interested. The Bucks to win 4-0, the Celtics to win 4-1, the Raptors to win 4-2, the 76ers to win 4-1, the Warriors to win 4-0, the Rockets to win 4-1, the Oklahoma City Thunder to win 4-2, and the Nuggets to win 4-3. They are my predictions. That is my ACCA for this week. As for overall predictions, what I think is going to happen, I'm going to put my neck on the line, and I think it's going to be interesting. I think the Celtics are going to click, and I think they're going to upset the Milwaukee Bucks in the semis. I just think that playoff experience and that seasoning is going to come true, and I just don't like the look of Giannis's health problems, and without Giannis, the Bucks are very vulnerable, and they have been vulnerable towards. They've kind of stumbled towards, since they collected the 1 seed and wrapped that up, they've stumbled towards the postseason. They lost their last regular season game, for example. I think the Raptors and 76ers very evenly matched. I think they go 7 with the Raptors coming out on top, and I think Boston pick their weary bones apart in the finals, and they win the Eastern Conference. Boston Celtics, you get good odds on that the way they're playing, but they did this like literally last year. In the West, I think Oklahoma City take out Denver in the conference semis. But the conference final of the West will be in the semis, as I think Houston are more ready to take on Golden State Warriors than they have been in years past. And I think they're going to take them to 7. But I think in the end, we get our dream matchup of Golden State against Oklahoma City, and it goes 6, setting up a Boston Golden State finals with Kevin Durant's farewell. And I think Golden State come out on top in that. Probably 4-1 if I had to guess now. But I see 2 surprises leaping up. So it's an interesting one. There's a lot to watch, and it's going to be great. So keep an eye on that. Like I said, NBA League Pass will give you access to all of it, or keep an eye on Sky Sports. And if you even just follow NBA.com, you can get daily recaps and whatnot until it gets to squeaky bum time. So that's the basketball, and that's all you need to know about the NBA playoffs. Now we're going to talk about the football, because our prediction league, well, I say it's back. It never really went away. We've been doing constant game weeks with Champions League and midweek games and whatnot. It's back again this weekend. If you want to play along, all you have to do is follow us on Twitter at Paddy's New Yacht, all one word, and then all you have to do is quote tweet the tweet we put up with the games for this week. Give us your score predictions, give us the correct score and anytime goal scorer. You get 1 point for the correct outcome, you get 3 points for the correct score, and you get 2 points for if your anytime goal scorer gets a goal. So potential 6 points per game. We wanted to play along, but to make things fair, I've won the past 2 monthly contests. We do monthly and a yearly contest. To make things fair, what we do is when we tape this show on Thursday, our picks, as we say them, as they come out of our mouth, they're locked in, whereas you guys have until Friday night, actually, because there's a Friday night game to get your picks in. So get involved, guys. It'll make your weekend a bit more interesting with the Premier League. We get kicked off on Friday night with Leicester against Newcastle, and a pretty easy start to the weekend for me. Leicester are on fire under Brendan Rodgers, winning their last 4 to move up to 7th. Newcastle, meanwhile, after letting my faith in them down last week, are pitiful away from home. They haven't won since December. They also lost a reverse fixture this in St James's Park, so nothing is boding well for Rafa here, as he could still find himself uncomfortably close to the relegation spot yet if things don't pick up. I've got Leicester winning 3-1 here with Vardy to get his 7th goal, and maybe 8th, who knows, under Rodgers.
Yeah, look, simple for me. Life's greatest King Power. Rodgers had those early teething problems have been fixed. Look for a 5th win on the spin. Rafa's will be probably alarmed with his side's performance at home to Palace on the same weekend, as Leicester absolutely hammered Huddersfield. But and as you mentioned, they haven't won on the road in 9 games, so don't be stupid. 3-0 Vardy.
Question. Leicester playing great under Rodgers. Do they challenge for Champions League next year?
Oh,
a signing or two, like if they get a decent signing.
If they can hold on to their signings as well, will be another one. I know Yuri Tielemans is. They can get. I don't think he's on loan, isn't he? So
yeah,
if they can get him permanent. Listen, like it's not unquestionable.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So, and we see Rodgers do it with a poorish squad before. Well, not poorish, but you know what I mean.
Yes,
like when it was unexpected before. So you know, it's not. I mean, that could be a shout and a half in 18 months.
It's an interesting one to keep an eye on. Moving on to the Saturday game, starting with the early game of Spurs against Huddersfield, and we have one golden rule here. On Paddy's new yacht when it comes to the early, and David Kemp, what is that? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Don't bet on the early. Although...
No, yeah, you have to this week.
This would be absolutely mental if it went any other way, truth be told. Spurs pretty much have a day off ahead of their back-to-back with City next week, and it's exactly what they need while they wonder what the hell they're going to do without Harry Kane for those 2 games. The last time Huddersfield beat Spurs, 1956. The last time Huddersfield even won a Premier League game, it feels like 1956 at this stage. The only way this gets interesting is if Pochettino decides to be cute and rest players for the second leg with City next week. But with Chelsea having overtaken them in the league now, I think he'll know he needs to get back to winning ways fast. 3-0 with Son to score after getting the first goal in the Premier League and Champions League in their new stadium.
If there's any game where you want to be missing Harry Kane, it's probably Huddersfield at home. Like, they were absolutely Huddersfield pathetic last week, and I'm not giving much hope against the Spurs side who are on cloud 9 of toppling City and are still on the new stadium bounce. Yes, I'm making that a thing from now. 4-0 Ericsson.
Moving on to the 3 p.m. games, all bet safe. So's the Spurs game, lads. it's grand. You can bet on the early. We give you permission.
Yeah.
3 p.m. games, Brighton against Bournemouth. Brighton seemed positive after holding City to just 1 goal in their FA Cup semi-final, and even though it's like a weird thing that semi-final loss can give you confidence, we all kind of get it at the same time. They can build on that weird momentum here with a visit from Bournemouth, who of course are awful away from the vitality, with their win over Huddersfield being their only 1 in 11, so it doesn't count. They haven't won in 10, and they won a friendly match, which they should have won. But wait, there's more. Brighton are also awful against Bournemouth for some reason. Their win over them in the FA Cup was their only win over them in 11 games. And the last time both of these sides won a game was on the same day, the 9th of March. So about a month since either of these sides have won 1 game. I think they'll both settle for not losing here. I've got it finishing 1-1 with Knockaert to score.
Brighton can effectively secure safety over this game week with 6 points against Bournemouth, and then they play Cardiff on Tuesday in their game in hand. I can definitely see them taking the latter half, but this one is a bit stickier for me. Both of them lost their last 2 league games, but that's more worrying for Eddie Howe. Only Fulham and Huddersfield have lost more games in Bournemouth since November. Think about that for a second. Only the 2 relegated sides have lost more games in Bournemouth in nearly 6 months. Seagulls have only lost 1 of the last 14 meetings in the Amex, and I think both sides will be happy with a point here, as you mentioned. I think Brighton have bigger fish to fry on Tuesday, and Bournemouth are happy out at this stage. 1-1 King.
I think Bournemouth need to look into whether Eddie Howe's job is tenable next season, because if they don't, they're looking like a Huddersfield type, where it's just or Burnley even, where you're just like
freewheeling,
and it's just not getting better. So, and as much as we like stupid, sexy Eddie Howe here, I don't know, it might be time. Burnley against Cardiff.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine. He'll pop him in the Championship. It'll all do well.
There you go. Burnley against Cardiff. An absolute must-win game for Cardiff, as back-to-back wins for Burnley have seen them pull away from the relegation zone and leave Neil Warnock's men 5 points adrift. The bad news for him here then is that Cardiff haven't beaten Burnley since I was 1 year old in 1988, and Warnock has never beaten Sean Dyche. It's looking bleak, and a loss here for Cardiff will as good as confirm Championship football if results don't go their way, pending an absolute miracle. I think it's going to happen too. The trend this year seems to be relegated sides just limping out of the league meekly and just letting us focus on the title race because it's great this year. And while the Welsh side have put up a better fight than most expected of them, I think it's time. 2-1, Ashley Barnes to score as he needs 2 more to be Burnley's record Premier League scorer for this season.
crap and get off the pot for Neil Warnock. He's got 2 games against 2 relegation rivals, both away from home, to save Cardiff's season. Yeah, you heard that. Away from home, that's not where Cardiff play well.
Yeah.
Defeating the first here could leave them 8 points off safety. Going to a Burnley side who won their last 2 games. They have the better form, and Dyche has never lost to Warnock. I don't see it happening here. 2-0 Barnes.
Fulham against Everton, and Everton announced that they were back in business in style last week by stunning Arsenal on their Champions League hunt. The race for 7th might be totally meaningless, but it's really exciting nonetheless, with 4 decent sides within a point of each other, and there's no reason to think Marco Silva will take his foot off the gas here. Fulham have lost their last 9 in a row on their way out of the Premier League and haven't beaten Everton in their last 10 games as the two sides have played. 2-0 Everton here with Sigurdsson to score as he's got 4 and 4 against Fulham.
Yeah, another simple pick. Not only they lost the last 9 in a row, they've lost the last 9 home games in a row as well. Everton 3-game winning run without conceding. As you mentioned, Sigurdsson 4 in his last 4 against Fulham, so give me him in a 2-0 win.
Moving on to the last 3 p.m. game, Southampton against Wolves. 2 sides that'll be sneaky motivated, both with something to play for and both coming off losses in games they led, and what could prove to be the game of the weekend. Southampton are playing absolute belters recently, and we saw Wolves and Watford ended up being sneaky great last week. Southampton, they're playing well as well, and but they still need to seal their status in next season's Premier League, as a slip could land them back within 2 points of the relegation zone if results don't go their way. Well, the only thing Wolves have left to play for is the aforementioned best of the rest title of 7th spot. Fun fact, Southampton have already lost twice to promoted sides this season. In more bad news for Hassan Huntel, they've lost their last 4 to Wolves. But I think in a game where both sides' form is identical, Southampton's need outstrips Wolves, and that cancels out the poor head-to-head between the two. Plus, Wolves can't keep clean sheets away from home. They haven't done so since October, and Southampton love getting the first goal in games. So if that happens, we've seen so often that Southampton struggle to lead from the front, and I think Wolves will be happy with a draw here. So I'm going for 1-1 with Højbjerg to score.
Oh, Wolves, my Wolves. You gave us a classic FA Cup semi-final, but came out on the wrong end. So your season is essentially over now. If Nuno Espirito Santo was smart, he'd look at how finishing 7th went for Burnley at the start of this season and relent. That would help a Southampton side who, just like last week, for so many times under Hassan, who will match the big side at home but couldn't complete the job. The amount of points that they could have picked up against the big sides this year, they'd probably be top half.
Yeah.
Newsflash, though. That was their only defeat in their last 4 games. Wolves haven't kept a clean sheet in their last 12 games on the road and haven't won the last 4. So Southampton are going to score. I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for Southampton to ease their worries, and 2-0 with Ward-Prowse.
Yeah, I can't argue. I could see it. It's just I think Wolves have just come into it motivated after last week. But I can absolutely see that happening. In the late game on Saturday, you've got Man United against West Ham, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer desperately needs to settle the ship at Old Trafford, having not won since being confirmed as permanent manager. Our crisis talk is going to start creeping in. We're not patient fans here at Man United. The bright side is that they face the visitor West Ham, who haven't won away since December and now seem to have even lost their home form. In truth, United looked decent against Barca and threatened the late equaliser, but that penetration in the final third just wasn't there against a world-class defence. The silver lining for them is that the Hammers aren't a world-class defence, and they haven't won any of their last 4 league, and the silver lining for the Hammers is that United haven't won any of their last 4 league games following a Champions League tie. But I think that changes here. United simply can't afford to lose and have to approach the game like this is all they've got left to play for, because the Barcelona, it's a big ask to repeat the job they did against PSG against Barca. And if Spurs see off Huddersfield, they come into this 5 points off 4th spot. They need to win here. 3-1 Pogba to score.
This picture always reminds me of one of the first games I ever saw on television. It was the FA Cup in 2001, I think it was, maybe 2000. The lone balloon, Fabian Barthez, thought Paulo Di Canio was offside. So he just stopped, stood his hand up. Di Canio wasn't offside. He scored while Barthez had his hand in the air, and United crashed out. I want to say it was like 4th round. It was 1-0 for West Ham. Scrappy all game. Random and completely irrelevant to this one. United were poor against Barcelona, but at least the tie is still alive. Mourinho's men were humbled in the reverse fixture 3-1, but that was only the Hammers' 2nd win over United in 9 years. This one is full of stats. You mentioned the post-Europe one for United, where they haven't won the last 4 games. But West Ham are winless in their last 19 games against the top 6, which is a mad stat. The one that stood out for me is that Romelu Lukaku has 6 in his last 5 home games against West Ham, so I'll take him in a 3-1 United win. They're the better side.
Yeah, I like it. Moving on to Super Sunday, and the only way we can do this, these games are they're completely connected. They're completely linked. There's a reason they're back-to-back on Super Sunday. We're going to preview both of them together. It's Crystal Palace against Man City and it's Liverpool against Chelsea. And can the ghosts of failed Premier League's past come back to haunt Liverpool, or will they exorcise the demons and lead outright by the end of play on Sunday? Who can ever forget it? It was Gerrard slipping against Chelsea, then a loss to Crystal Palace that undid them in their challenge of Man City 5 years ago. And all four involved return to the scene of the crime here on what feels like a fateful day that could either see history repeat itself or Liverpool triumph and finally be accepted as champions incumbent. City bring their 8-game winning streak to a Palace side who undid them in their reverse fixture in the Etihad earlier this season. But it's hardly as if they're freewheeling here. The results since their 6-0 win over Chelsea: 1-0, 1-0, 3-1, 2-0, 2-0. It's been steady, not spectacular for them. And of course, they come into this game off a defeat to Spurs in the Champions League during the week with one eye on the second leg next week. And they've got Spurs after that. So they could come into this with complacency seeping in. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. Liverpool have been similarly nervy, but if you believe in momentum in sport, they'll come into this feeling better, having seen off Spurs with a late goal, overturned Southampton last week, and they're now comfortable in their Champions League tie with Porto, so they can focus on this game. The crux in this City game may be Palace's home form. They haven't beaten a top side in Selhurst Park all season. Their 2-2 draw with Arsenal was their sole point that they've got from games with the top six. In Selhurst Park. Plus, City tend to react well to defeat. Aside from their loss in their reverse fixture, every other time they've lost this season, they've responded defiantly, beating Cardiff 5-0, beating Hoffenheim in the Champions League, beating Southampton and Arsenal 3-1. So I'm picking that scoreline. City 3-1 here for me too, Aguero to score. As for Pool against Chelsea, well, what should make Liverpool fans nervous here, as well as Chelsea's apparent return to form and ascent back to third in the table, and the fact that they do still need to win here because the pressure is still on, it's that Liverpool have failed to win any of their last 6 games against the Blues in Anfield, including this very season in the League Cup. The better news for Liverpool is that Chelsea have lost their last 5 games against top 6 opponents by an aggregate score of 11-1. So I don't think either City or Pool will slip here. I think the twist will be that both hold serve. I think Liverpool will win this 2-1 with Salah to score.
How often do you reckon Jarrett Slift get mentioned in the build-up to this Sunday, you reckon? I mean,
Bottle.
for Liverpool fans, they have to forget the game where Steven Gerrard slipped the cost of the league title the last time they were in this position in 2014 and concentrate. The only reason that that cost Liverpool was because City kept winning in 2014, and it's the exact same this year. City keep winning. They're not winning spectacularly, as you mentioned, but they are getting the job done. They've stuck 20 past their opponents in their last 8 games, winning them all and allowing just 2 goals back in. But then you talk about Palace. They let 3 in against them in the Etihad, and the time before that was the stalemate, meaning that Guardiola has never beaten the Eagles.
Jesus.
It's just an anomaly. Yeah, it's one of those where you're like, that can't be right. And then you look at stats and you're like, oh my goodness. Liverpool, routine enough midweek 2-0 win. Funnily enough, 2-0 was the score when Steven Gerrard slipped against Chelsea and cost them the 2014 title. I say routine. There's a trend there. I say routine. They could easily have lost that game midweek if Marco Marega had his shooting boots on for Porto. As you mentioned, they haven't won any of the last 6 home times with Chelsea, losing 4. Including the one where Steven Gerrard slipped in 2014 to cost them the league title. But then you look at I'm going back to City, and you talk about their record, never beaten Palace. And even worse news for them is that Sergio Aguero, who missed a penalty during the week against Spurs, remember, has never scored against them in Selhurst Park in 5 games. All those stats means I should be reconsidering my usual logic for City, and I am, by using FMQ. Form, City. Motivation, definitely City. Quality, City. Still points me to a 3-1 win for Man City with Raheem Sterling scoring. Liverpool, on the other hand, Eden Hazard is on fire. Callum Hudson-Odoi is finally playing his way into Sarri's plans. And another kicker for me is that the Blues have won 3 of their last 4 away league games against sides who started the day top. One of those was in Anfield in April in 2014. And you remember what happened?
I can't. Remind me.
Steven Gerrard slipped, then the pass scored. You know what happened after that. We've talked about Liverpool for weeks about they're going to slip and they've kept winning. Now they're up against a good side and a side who have everything to play for as well. I'm not gonna say who's gonna slip. Ideally, it'd be Jordan Henderson because that'd just be hilarious. But I'm going for a Chelsea win. I'm gonna go 3-1 Chelsea. I'm gonna go Hazard to score. They were excellent on Monday.
Interesting. It's a great set of Super Sunday games. Like,
it's brilliant. And like when you add in the Masters as well, what a Sunday!
Yeah,
what a day.
Just park your arse on the couch and just enjoy.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant because Shannon, I have Sunday off work and I rarely get weekends off work, but Shannon has to go to her aunt's. She's like, well, I could reschedule that. And I'm like, you know what, go, it's fine. Take as much time as you want. If you want to stay till 11 or 12 o'clock, that's fine. He's like, I'll be alright, it's grand. So well, it's worked out perfectly.
Doing Sundays right, I like it. On Monday night, you've got Watford against Arsenal. An interesting final game of the week as Watford, high offsetting their FA Cup final date, host an Arsenal side who blinked at exactly the wrong time against Everton. In more bad news for Arsenal, Watford won this game last season and Unai Emery's men haven't kept a clean sheet away from home all season. The flip side of that is that Watford literally had cup final celebrations last week. They were celebrating because they got to the cup final and Arsenal simply can't afford to lose here. They have them beaten for motivation and quality, while Watford's recent record against the top six this season is piss poor and the pressure's off them now in the league that they're going to Wembley. So I've got Arsenal to win 3-1 here with Lacazette to score.
Yeah, Arsenal were atrocious in Goodison Park, continuing their run of not being able to get a clean sheet on the road. Watford lost 4 of the last 5 home matches against Arsenal, but beat them 2-1 in the anomaly last year, as you mentioned. They're full of confidence after the Cup semi-final wins, but yes, they were Cup final celebrations, obviously. Point still stands, and a weird quirk is that Arsenal won 7 of the last 8 Premier League matches on a Monday. It's just maybe they need that extra day off. I'm sure there's an Arsenal fan somewhere pointing to a Premier League table of games on Monday, and Arsenal are about 20 points clear at the top of it. This could be any result, but I'm just leaning towards the Gunners. So I'm going to go 3-2 with Dave Lefebvre scoring.
Arsenal fan TV has gone downhill since Arsene Wenger left. It's just, look at us on Mondays! They're really stuck for content now that they're actually decent. Guys, if you're looking for a bet, I'm betting on the basketball this weekend, but I've still put together a bet for you guys. I've got Burnley to beat Cardiff, Everton to beat Fulham. I've got a draw with Southampton and Wolves and Man United to win. €5 on that gives you €63 in return. Watch now that I don't take my own bet, and that's going to come in exactly as I said. Anyway, guys, Dave, what are you going to be keeping an eye on this weekend?
It was Sheffield United who blinked in the promotion race in the Championship, as they failed to capitalise on Leeds' loss to Birmingham on Sunday by only drawing with the same club on Wednesday, while Leeds recovered to beat Preston and sneak back into second. Norwich were uncharacteristically held by the mighty Reading FC to halt their title charge. They still lead Leeds by 5 points with only 5 games left, so it's almost certain that Norwich are up. It's just whether they can win the title. Down the bottom, that point for Reading is what's keeping them out of the drop zone. Ipswich will go down with a defeat on Saturday, while Bolton can also face a drop to League One if results go against them. Above those two, though, you have 2 points separating 4 teams for the final spot. Rotherham are currently stuck in there on 39, with Wigan, Millwall and Reading all locked on 41 above them. The Royals and Wigan have the same goal difference, and Millwall are only 2 better off. It is that tight.
Nice. Playoff
race seems done and dusted, with West Brom, Villa and Bristol City being joined by whoever misses out on the automatic between Leeds and Sheffield United. The games you want to keep an eye on Soccer Saturday for: Sheffield United at home to Millwall, games with implications with both ends of the table. Rotherham at home to Stoke. Leeds are the late game against Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday, and Wigan Norwich on Sunday. I'm also watching the Masters. Me bets: Louis Oosthuizen, Hae-Tong Lee and Bubba Watson each way, with a tenner on McIlroy to get a slam at 6-1, and Jordan Spieth to lead after the first round is 28-1. That is a monstrous deal considering how he plays at the Masters.
Yeah, and what is it? I saw a stat during the week. It's Jordan Spieth in whatever amount of tournaments. He's 19 under in the first round and 3 over in the next 3 rounds, on average. So yeah, he is a beast in the first round.
He's never hit over 7 under par at the Masters, and 4 top 5 finishes as well. He might be worth an each way bet overall too.
I love that first round bet. That's absolutely fantastic.
28-1.
Yeah, that. I'm tempted. Moving on to the European football for the weekend. Barca, Juve and PSG all effectively wrapped up their titles of the weekend, leaving us a bit thin on the ground for European intrigue. PSG can wrap up their title this week with a win over second place Lille after an extraordinary miss from Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting saw them held against Strasbourg last week. Juventus need just 1 point, so you imagine they'll be fine over the next 7 weeks. In La Liga, the pick of the bunch would be the El Gran Derby of Seville as Sevilla host rivals Betis. Sevilla are just 1 point off Getafe in the 4 Champions League spot, so it's important in the grand scheme but the local rivalry is perhaps the fiercest in Spain, as unlike, say, the Madrid derby or the Basque derby of Barcelona and Espanyol, the two sides see each other not only as local rivals, but their own biggest challengers. They're very evenly matched. There's known to be violence involved with fans, such as the mutual enmity, and some occasional crackers. The concurrent fixture last year finished 5-3 to Betis, so that game is Saturday's late fixture in the Liga, and definitely worth keeping an eye on. In Serie A, the pick of the bunch is AC Milan against Lazio, two inconsistent teams, both competing for Milan's fourth place. The last prize available left essentially in the league, with 5 sides within 3 points and only 1 Champions League spot up for grabs. Milan initially reacted well to the loss of Higuain to Chelsea, but are in free fall lately, picking up just 1 point from their last 12. Lazio, meanwhile, are maddeningly inconsistent too. They beat Roma and Inter, and then their last 2 games have been a loss to Spal 2013 and a draw with Sassuolo. So someone has to finish fourth. There's a rule here. They need someone to finish fourth, even though none of the teams seem to want to do it. And it seems like every week there's a twist in the race. So this Saturday night game is the best bet to find one this week. The Bundesliga, it's still all to play for. After all the hype about their Klassiker last week, in the end, Dortmund just kind of laid down and died, losing 5-0 to Bayern and being 4-0 down at half-time. They had an early opportunity, missed it, and then that was that. The thing is, because Bayern dropped 2 points to Freiburg last week, that win still just leaves them 1 point ahead of the top at the top with 6 games to go. So the win was more of a psychological blow than decisive. The only way it would have been decisive is if Dortmund had won and opened up a bit of space between the two. This weekend, Dortmund hosts 12th place Mainz on Saturday, while Bayern travel to mid-table Fortuna Düsseldorf. Any more drop points could prove crucial, so neither side, particularly Dortmund, can afford to blink. It is the definition of squeaky bum time in football. All great leagues, of course, even though they might be wrapped up for the most part, but they are not, of course, the greatest league in the world. So Dave, what's going on in the LOI?
Well, before I get to that, we were talking about John Delaney news at the start of the show. It's not major. We have had some breaking show news. It's not a major blow to him. But the Leinster Senior League, which is the top grassroots underage junior football thing in the country, has asked its members whether the board should resign, the FAI board should resign. If they come back, yes, that is a monstrous blow for Delaney, because they hold the power in junior football in Ireland. You forget, we know the MFA, the Munster Football, the Connacht FA have come out with statements in the last couple of weeks backing him. If the Leinster Senior League don't back him, he is in deep trouble.
Oh, interesting.
So that's another positive side. But yes, back to the greatest league in the world. And as much as I talk about good stories every week, there are some bad ones too. And this week, we had a pretty bad one. Last weekend, before the Northwest Derby between Derry and Finn Harps, Kieran Call, Derry City player, formerly Harps captain, spoke to the media about how Derry were far more professional and he was happier at a big club. Flash forward to the game, that didn't go that well with the Finn Harps players. Colin Deasy almost snapped Call's legs in two. I put the video on the Paddy's New York Twitter yesterday. If you haven't seen it, fair warning. It's one of the worst I've ever seen. Derry won a bad-tempered game 3-2 after that, and in a sort of revenge kind of thing, decided to empty the dressing room bins into the showers and toilets in Finn's Park at full time and left it in an absolute state. There is a bit of bad blood there, and they've been drawn together for the EA Sports Cup quarter-finals in 2 weeks, so we're going to get a bit of niggle there, and Ollie Horgan will be back on the line for that, having been suspended at the weekend. On the field, after 6 years of sleeping, the Dublin clubs have finally woken up. Rovers battered Cork City and Turner's Cross last week, and Bows are their closest challengers because Dundalk slipped up to St. Pat's. There's nothing on TV this week. In reality, there's no real big game to warrant it, so I'm actually going to use this to talk about Sean Cox and the memorial match, not the memorial match, the fundraising match for Sean Cox and the Aviva is on Friday night at the same time as all those League of Ireland games. Tickets are still available, even if you can't go, think about buying a ticket and just donating it to the trust. Very worthwhile cause. I've had the fortune of playing under Sean Cox as a hurling coach when Donegal Ashman amalgamated with Dunboyne, and obviously everyone knows the situation now. Brilliant video this morning. He's back. He's up talking. He's talking to his wife. He gave a thumbs up and said thank you for all the support. It's incredible to see. So listen, lads, great cause. Try and give us, if anything, you can.
Very worthy cause there. I've just checked out that tweet. Oh my God, that was sickening. That was like, it was just scummy. He just went for the.
Do you have the sound on?
No, I haven't. I'll stick it on now.
Yeah, you can hear the thud.
People can hear it now. Hold on. Oh Jesus! The scream.
Now, thankfully, Kieran Call hasn't broken his leg.
All right,
but
Jesus.
It does appear that there's ligament damage, but it is it's a disgusting tackle.
It was. He went for it like it was clear as day.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, last but not least, Dave, I've done the maths.
Okay.
In Kent
Do I
versus
need
Kent, our end of show quiz, where we quiz Dave on sport stories that he's reported himself and just see if he can remember them. Dave is losing badly.
It's gone past losing. It's now just Huddersfield levels of just embarrassment. I'm just like
You're not relegated just yet, but you are 17-12 down. The non-cheating rules have really worked against you, I have to say. You're 17-12 down, 5 points down, and you need to win every single week to have a chance in this season. If you don't know the rules, guys, like I said, we quiz Dave on stories he's reported. Three questions. If he gets 2 or more, he gets the point for the week. Like I said, he's losing 17-12. Dave, I'm making the questions a bit easier to give you a chance. These are all stuff that came... Well, no, apart from one, these are all things that came directly from stories you've reported. So, I fancy your chances.
I haven't done that much this week, so I should be all right here.
And I did tell you to study last week, so if you've done your homework...
I looked over my articles beforehand.
All right, interesting. First question. You reported on the retirement of All Black World Cup winner Israel Dag during the week. But who did he play for? Who did he play his final test against?
Oh, it was a long time ago. It was in 2017.
You're correct there.
It was the Autumn Internationals, wasn't it? So it would have been the Southern Hemisphere because they played. I'm torn between Argentina and Australia. It's definitely an A because I remember writing it. No, they wouldn't have played an Autumn International against Australia because that's the fucking. Oh no! Oh my Tri Nations logic went out the window there because it's not the Tri Nations anymore. See, Rugby Championship. They wouldn't have played that. That's too big a game to play for a friendly. I'm gonna go Argentina.
Okay. Question 2.
That's 50-50. It's one or the other.
Question 2. What 3 sides did you report Ireland were drawn with in the Under-17 European Championships?
Belgium, Czech Republic, Greece. I put it in the paper.
Straight in there, Jesus. Be gas if you're wrong. I love when he gets really confident and he's wrong.
Yeah, it's awkward if I get that wrong.
Last but not least, ahead of the debut of Game of Low Blows next week, you ranked the Game of Thrones characters in the order they're likely to die. And I want to just point out a correction in your article here. I'm going to actually on this. Ilaria Sand, who you reported as 100% dead, is not dead. Cersei specifically said...
she wasn't actually... Yeah, we saw her dying.
We didn't see Ilaria die.
No, we didn't see her die. We saw her dying. She said that she would watch the daughter starve. They're not going to keep her alive.
Cersei said specifically she's going to force food down her throat to keep her alive and watch her daughter disintegrate and just have to sit there. And this is why it was torturous, because she's going to make her live for years with her daughter's skeleton. So the specific purpose of her is that... Yeah, I'm actually in you there. I'm just throwing you off.
Done.
I'm trying to throw you off the scent.
I'm going to go edit that now.
You also said that Varys is likely to survive, which I found controversial. But what did Melisandre say to Varys before leaving for Essos in Season 7? You may need this to stay in the game.
I watched this scene when I was writing it.
I don't think you did.
My time is no. It's it's like your time might. It's not. That's going to sound like John Cena.
Well, no, you don't need to say the exact quote. There's something specifically she said to him.
Okay, then no.
Like she said something.
Yeah, it's something. Yeah.
I can't give you more clues without telling you.
No, yeah, it's not your time is up, but it's something to that extent. Or
Okay.
you like. It's like.
We'll follow that.
She's like, my time is done here. Yours will be soon, or something like that. Fuck it, anyway. I've watched so much in the last week, so I've been catching up with Shannon. I watched this episode during the week with Shannon.
You have one chance if you want to. It's like a specific thing she said.
Yeah.
Like, not like your time is up or anything like that.
I didn't put it in the article either, so.
Alright, interesting. Right. I'll tell you the answer for that.
I could have needed that.
I'll tell you the answer for that.
Okay.
He has to die in Westeros. That's why I was like, really, you think he's going to live? They specifically said on the show he's going to die in Westeros.
They say a lot of things on the show.
I'm just saying.
He could die after the end of season 8.
I thought it was controversial. I'm just saying. Anyway, look, you were straight in with the under 17 Euros. Belgium, Czech Republic, and Greece. So that's one correct, one wrong, meaning you need to get this. Who did Israel Dag play his final test against? I can confirm.
It's Australia.
That it was one of the two sides that you said.
Oh, no.
You said Argentina or Australia to stay in Kent on Kent for the entire season. The correct
what happens
answer.
if this is wrong?
We'll play it out and just see how badly I beat you. Then I'm going to make the questions. Then I'm going to make the questions really hard again, because then I'll be just padding my score. It was either Australia or Argentina.
I said Argentina.
You said Argentina. The correct answer was. Don't cry, Dave. For it was Argentina, you got it right. There you go. You're still in
nice
it.
Nice, excellent reference.
Congratulations, you're still in the game, still in the hunt. Though with every point
it's like Cardiff. It's a stay of execution.
This is it. We shall see. This would be. I said my comeback earlier in the season was the greatest comeback known to man. This would legitimately be. This would be like new camp Aguero last minute winner if you were somehow able to come back from this deficit. Anyway, look, guys, enjoy your sporting weekend. Keep an eye on the NBA playoffs. Enjoy the Masters, and just Sunday, just sit the fuck down and enjoy the sports. Yeah. Don't do anything. Do a Dave and get rid of the missus. Or get rid of the mister.
That was a stroke of luck.
Just get rid and then just enjoy it all, guys. We'll be tweeting about it as the weekend goes on, so stay tuned for that. Play the Prediction League, of course, but until next week, where we will see if Kento can continue this comeback. For David Kent, I've been Rick Nash, and this has been Paddy's New Yacht.